morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Dash. I am the Director of City Planning for the Department of City Planning. And today we are here to announce the launching of ForgingPgh, which is the city's first comprehensive land use plan. This process is the announcement of a process that will be developing over the next 12 months, where we will be working to get resident engagement input to be able to develop a strategy for how we look at land use through the city of Pittsburgh and its neighborhoods over the next 20 years. So before I kind of jump in to ForgingPgh, a comprehensive plan more broadly is something that's a policy document that's meant to focus on land use and guide decisions as to how we develop and how we grow as a city. It's driven by resident guidance to help determine what policies and what zoning code changes that we as a city make, that residents and communities develop in their neighborhood plans, or that other nonprofits and city departments work on for issues and policies related to land use. Pittsburgh has a rich history of planning from the times when we brought Frederick Law Olmsted in to look at development along our major thoroughfares and the shape and design of our roadways, to the Pittsburgh Plan developed in the 1920s by the Citizens Committee to Plan Pittsburgh, to planning efforts that occurred in the 1960s around looking at the city as a whole. We've also looked at things like our riverfronts and have a history of riverfront planning and guiding development and change along our riverfronts, our regional parks that occurred in the 90s and 2000s, and have a lot of recent good efforts, good planning efforts and examples of planning that have occurred more recently. From work that we've done on climate action and resilience to look at the city in the largest of roles, to looking at our neighborhoods and the neighborhood planning program that over the past 4 years that we've worked with the mayor to develop to focus more specifically in certain areas, as well as a lot of people-based planning efforts, from things like the All-in Equitable Development Report, to My Brother's Keeper, to Welcoming Pittsburgh, to our gender equity report. And a lot of these really focused on understanding and highlighting the inequities that our city has, and really trying to focus on kind of the need to create opportunity for the most vulnerable. And coming back to ForgingPgh, which again is that kind of first look at citywide land use, guided by both local frameworks, our People, Place, Planet, and Performance P4 framework, as well as international frameworks such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We really want to make sure that we're incorporating those previous planning efforts, focusing those and centering those on land use, and focusing those on people, especially the people that live or work in areas where they're most vulnerable to displacement. And although this is something that we've been planning for some time, I think both economic issues relative to the pandemic, as well as highlights of racial unrest, have really helped make sure that we need to focus on both short-term strategies while we're working at long-term. So although the horizon of the comprehensive plan is 20 years, we will also be including short-term strategies to, over the next couple of years, be able to make changes that help provide opportunity for Pittsburgh residents and help make sure that we are centering these projects and this plan in equity. As a part of this process, we'll be releasing a couple of RFPs to have some assistance with us to get more detail on both housing strategy and economic development strategy. And so very briefly, I'll introduce and have them come up and talk. That'd be Christopher Corbett, who's a planner with the department, and Stephanie Joy Everett, a senior planner with the department. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christopher Corbett, neighborhood planner serving the East End of Pittsburgh, as well as the project manager for the housing needs assessment that we'll be releasing this week. So as the Director Dash said, we'll be releasing 2 critical RFPs to support the ForgingPgh, our comprehensive plan. The housing needs assessment is to provide a better understanding of our current housing market, as well as to produce a sense of understanding for meaningful change to happen for our future growth as well. So the assessment will help elected officials, city staff, stakeholders, and community members to develop a meaningful sense of the housing market, recognize key housing issues, and understand how these issues have impacted our city. The housing needs assessment will promote equitable and sustainable housing policies as we shape an inclusive Pittsburgh. The housing needs assessment will include current and projected future housing market conditions, an inventory of existing affordable housing, and projected inventory of affordability aligning with our ForgingPgh until 2040. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Joy Everett, a senior planner in the Department of City Planning. I'll be working on the comprehensive market demand and economic opportunity analysis that will feed into the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. That analysis will kind of guide us and help us understand what is happening in Pittsburgh's market today, the trends, opportunities, and market forces that will shape Pittsburgh over the next 20 years. It will also dive into a near-term strategy for economic recovery. It will look at long-term employment trends so that Pittsburghers have the opportunity to obtain life-sustaining jobs. It will evaluate workforce development programs. The analysis will also develop a 2-year plan for recovery from COVID-19. The recovery obviously has to prioritize human welfare, identify the accelerating trends that are happening under COVID, and provide the best practices to address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Stephanie Joy. And I'd also like to thank Anthony Koback, who is here as well, who is serving as the project manager on this effort. With that, I just wanted to, with giving an overview of what it is that we'll be doing, wanted to be able to highlight, our timeline for the process and how we, hope that residents will engage with us through this process. With that, we are releasing a couple of resources for the public as a part of this process. On the ForgingPgh.org website, which is the website for the comprehensive plan and its process. The first of those being the Conditions and Trends Report. And so that Conditions and Trends Report, which we're releasing, really outlines where the city has been and where the city is now. It identifies some of the inequities that have been created through land use and through development, whether those have been by development that's occurred in the city or even some that have been incurred by national policies such as redlining, as well as local decisions in our past. And so trying to highlight those to understand how those have changed the city to the city it is now, and how there are certain inequities that have been created through development over the last 50 plus years. With the Conditions and Trends Report, it will kind of showcase where data around the city and information for the city, and will inform the ForgingPgh process. So it is a resource that is out there for residents to be able to look at as we begin this process. The second is the data visualization tool. The data visualization tool is a place where residents can receive a scorecard of indicators around their neighborhood, both at the neighborhood level as well as at the citywide level, and get information on the city and its neighborhoods as we begin this process. The ForgingPgh website will also then link to our engagement opportunities that we'll be doing over the next 12 months. Due to the pandemic, in the short term, our engagement will focus on the EngagePGH platform, which is the online engagement platform that the city has created. And so in that, there will be a number of opportunities that will be developed for residents to participate in the process, in both English and Spanish. Those opportunities will include a survey of interests that residents have for the city and its growth and its future growth, as well as a mapping exercise to be able to understand from residents where they wish to see growth and where they wish to see other opportunities such as transportation improvements, additional affordability, or in their neighborhoods or across the city. And then the timeline for this process is that we will be obtaining that resident input through this part of the process and be developing scenarios for the public. And those scenarios will be developed with accompanying scorecards that will start to show what the residents told us in developing those scenarios and how they perform in means of certain categories: affordability, climate and energy, transportation and mobility, stormwater, and other ways, so that residents can understand the different implications of those different scenarios and be able to choose either a preferred scenario or choose parts of different scenarios that will ultimately lead to what they want to see and what residents are driving as the future of land use in the city of Pittsburgh. After that's complete, what we will be doing is then developing policies and goals to support that land use strategy that residents work and drive the development of. So with that, and that is a process that will be taking place over the next 12 months. So the process begins now in September with this initial round of engagement, and we'll be coming back with scenarios and those report cards for those scenarios at the beginning of 2021. And with that, I'd like to introduce William Peduto, our mayor, to be able to give some remarks.
Thanks, Director. First off, I want to thank you, your team, and the consultants that have been working on this for over a year and a half. The input that you received from the community, the due diligence of putting together what will be the first land use comprehensive plan in the city of Pittsburgh's history is not only a historical marker, but absolutely necessary for the Pittsburgh that we're at today. We approached this type of planning back in the 1920s, and we did it again in the 1960s. And part of the reason I think that we haven't really looked holistically at planning and putting it together, especially with land use, neighborhood by neighborhood, is because during the 1980s, during the 1990s, beginning of the 2000s, there wasn't much investment happening in the city of Pittsburgh. We were playing defense. We were trying to save our city and to keep our head above the water. And the idea of planning what we wanted within our own neighborhoods was so far gone because of the fact that there wasn't any investment happening in our neighborhoods. So now we're at a different phase. Now we're at a phase that we haven't been at since the 1970s. And that's one where investment is happening all over the city. And we can choose to continue to play the defensive model of urban planning, where we wait for a developer to come into a neighborhood with a plan and then sort of craft that plan around the community's needs. Or we can change, and we can change the way that we do urban planning in the city of Pittsburgh. We can play offense. We can work neighborhood by neighborhood to develop plans of what the vision is for the people that live in those neighborhoods. We can put it together in a comprehensive way so that it follows our principles, our 4 Ps. How will it benefit people? How will it benefit the planet? How will it make this place that we call home unique and actually enhance upon the historic character of all of our neighborhoods? And then how will it perform? So that we see economic investment, we see continued development, we see a continuation of a city that is growing and not one that is dying. We are at a critical time also because of the issues of today, the issues of equity, the issues of systemic racism, the issues that have plagued this city for decades. And we can put into our urban plans a model that breaks away from generations of disinvestment in our Black communities. A model that actually redlined out areas of our city from being invested in. And we can turn that model into a different model, one that looks through the lens of equity in assuring that everybody has a place at the table for the future of Pittsburgh. That's where we're at today. That's where we'll be working at with the community for the next 12 months. And we'll be pulling together the housing strategy, the economic development strategy, even all the way down to the stormwater strategy, because the city of Pittsburgh, stormwater doesn't know neighborhood borders. We need to have a comprehensive way in order to be able to stop the flooding, stop the landslides, and to be able to deal with the real situation of climate change that is occurring in our city today. With that, and I've had this opportunity to look at comprehensive land use plans of other cities from around this country and around this world. The work that the director and his team have done is right up there with any other city, in that we should be proud that we have this type of an approach in looking at a new model of planning in the city of Pittsburgh. Of course, this will work hand in hand with our economic development strategy, with the URA, and that our investment will follow this plan, and it will work hand in hand with our housing authority in affordable housing throughout the city of Pittsburgh.